Harper and Harper Audio present The Improbable Tales of Baskerville Hall by Ali Standish, in partnership with the Conan Doyle Estate Limited. Performed by James Meunier. To Luca, Emma and Eva, Paige and Will, Anna and Haley, Ava Catherine, and all the cousins yet to come. Once you have eliminated the impossible, all that remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Sherlock Holmes. 1. A Study in Scarlet. Arthur was a boy who was almost never wrong. At school, he had the most annoying habit of working out the answer first and getting it right, too. His classmates knew this wasn't his fault. It was simply the way his mind worked. But if you had asked Arthur Conan Doyle if something was stirring in the air that crisp September day, if he could sense adventure and danger drawing near, he would have quickly pegged you for a fortune-teller trying to trick him out of a halfpenny. Even Arthur, as it turned out, could be mistaken now and again. "Is that all?" he asked that fateful afternoon, frowning at the cut of mutton Mr. Fraser had set on his butcher's scale. Split 7 ways, it would barely add up to a mouthful each. "I'm afraid that's all your money will buy today, Arthur," Mr. Fraser replied, with a sad smile. Arthur noticed the dark circles beneath the butcher's eyes. He glanced at the far end of the sawdust-strewn shop, where Mrs. Fraser usually worked, but she wasn't there. Her sight had been getting worse lately. He could tell from the way she squinted to see him when he greeted her. Perhaps it had become so bad she could no longer see well enough to work. That meant she would need a doctor, and that Mr. Fraser would have to hire someone to take her place. In other words, Arthur deduced, Mr. Fraser could no longer afford to give him a bit more than what he could pay for. "Yes, sir," Arthur said, and, remembering his manners, "Thank you." As he moved toward the door, carrying the mutton wrapped in paper, he studied the other customers waiting in line. There was a man who must have been very preoccupied, for he didn't seem to notice that he had stepped in horse manure on his way to the shop. There was a woman who had patched a tear in her skirt rather shabbily, and a boy who, judging by the bulge in his boot, was concealing a knife. Better to notice those things than the mouth-watering cuts of veal and pork behind Mr. Fraser's counter, waiting for other families to come claim them. "They're not for us," Arthur told himself. "Not today, at least." It was a relief when he stepped out into the sloped cobblestone streets of Edinburgh, which bustled with shoppers and paper boys, horses and girls selling posies of flowers on the corners. The air smelled of fresh ginger cakes from Barrowclough's bakery, and was cooled by a southwestern breeze that whispered of autumn. The leaves on the few trees along the road were rattling pleasantly, waiting for their turn to fall. For young Arthur, there was usually nothing more wonderful than a September afternoon. September heralded the start of a new school year, new lessons, new subjects. Today, though, the wind brought only a chill to his heart. Before he knew where his feet were carrying him, he found himself crossing the street to W. Scott Books, where he watched a bookseller arranging her display. He couldn't make out any of the titles from this side of the glass, but the volumes were every bit as appetizing as the butcher's finest meats had been. Maybe even more so. To think of all the places that lay inside of them, far away from Scotland, all the adventures waiting to be had. He let out a sigh, fogging the window with his longing. "They're not for me," he reminded himself again. "Not today." If his family couldn't afford enough food to fill their bellies, they certainly couldn't afford books to fill Arthur's mind. As if in agreement, the
Sample complete. Ready to continue?